She was the adorable Buffy Davis, America's sweetheart from the hit sitcom Family Affair. With her blonde pigtails, impossibly wide smile, and her ever-present companion, the Mrs. Beasley doll, she was the picture of childhood innocence. She was a little girl who charmed her way into millions of homes and hearts, every single week. Her name was Anissa Jones, and for 5 years, she was one of the most recognizable child stars on the planet. But when the show ended, when the applause faded and the carefully crafted world of a Hollywood set was torn down, it marked the beginning of a tragic spiral into a life she just couldn't escape. The public knew her as Buffy, the sweet, pigtailed orphan who found a loving family. The reality? A fractured home, crushing pressure, and a loneliness that stuck to her long after the cameras stopped rolling. She fought to break free from the character that made her famous, but Hollywood, and the public, simply wouldn't let her go. This is the story of how America's sweetheart became a cautionary tale, a young woman lost in the gap between her public image and her private pain, a path that led to her shocking death at just 18 years old from one of the most massive drug overdoses a coroner had ever seen. Mary Anissa Jones was born on March 11, 1958, in West Lafayette, Indiana. Her father was an engineering graduate, and her mother was a zoology student. After her younger brother, Paul, was born, the family spent several years in Charleston, West Virginia, before moving to Playa del Rey, California around 1963. It was there that the perfect family image began to crack, with her parents divorcing before she ever stepped in front of a camera. On the suggestion of a neighbor, Anissa's mother started taking her to auditions. At just 6 years old, she booked her first TV commercial. 2 years later, in 1966, an 8-year-old Anissa, who was tiny for her age, was cast in a new CBS sitcom called Family Affair. The show's premise was pure comfort food for the era. A wealthy, swinging bachelor and engineer named Bill Davis, played by Brian Keith, suddenly becomes the guardian to his late brother's 3 kids, teenager Sissy, and 6-year-old twins, Jody and Buffy. Anissa was cast as Ava Elizabeth Buffy Davis, the pigtailed, perpetually sweet twin to Johnny Whitaker's Jody. The chemistry between Anissa and Johnny was so real during screen tests that producers just decided to make their characters twins, even though they weren't the same age. The show was a massive, instant hit. It ran for 5 seasons and 138 episodes, becoming a fixture in American homes. And Anissa Jones, as Buffy, was the undeniable breakout star. Her character, always clinging to her beloved Mrs. Beasley doll, became a cultural icon. Mattel released a talking, small-talk Buffy doll and, of course, a replica of Mrs. Beasley, which became a sensation. There were lunchboxes, comic books, and coloring books, all with her face on them. Anissa wasn't just a little girl anymore, she was a brand. She was America's daughter. As columnist Marilyn Beck later wrote, she was a little girl whom other little girls envied, but who, in truth, experienced tremendous pressure during those years that should be reserved for the simple joys of childhood. The work schedule for a kid on a hit show was, to put it mildly, grueling. Anissa spent most of her days on set, with studio tutors for school and meals often eaten right there at the studio. Her life was a blur of memorizing lines, rehearsals, photo shoots, and public appearances on shows like The Merv Griffin Show. She was expected to be on all the time, to be the smiling, happy Buffy the world adored, while the on-screen Davis family was a comforting fantasy, a broken family made whole again. Anissa's real life was the complete opposite. Her parents' divorce wasn't just messy, it was a bitter, drawn-out war, leading to a harsh custody battle over Anissa and her brother. The constant fighting took a huge toll on her. Imagine acting out the dream of a perfect family at work, only to come home to your own falling apart. Even on set, the pressure was building. As she got older, Anissa grew more and more frustrated with only being seen as Buffy. By the time she was 9, she was already tired of playing a character who was stuck at 6 years old. She would politely correct people who called her Buffy, saying, "Please call me Anissa." Her mother admitted that while Anissa liked being famous, playing a babyish role was frustrating. Here was this smart, thoughtful kid trapped in the body of a 6-year-old character, a weight that just got heavier every year. Her co-star Kathy Garver, who played Sissy, said Anissa's mother was a very pushy stage mother, demanding perfection from her young daughter. Anissa was under constant pressure to perform, to be the perfect little actress, on and off set. This, combined with her chaotic home life, basically stole her childhood. While other kids were in school, making friends, and going to parties, Anissa was working. Her friends were the adults on set, and her playground was a soundstage. The golden age was, for Anissa, a gilded cage. The fame and money came at a huge personal cost. She was isolated, stressed, and facing an identity crisis before she was even a teenager. The world saw a smiling face and cute pigtails, but under the surface, a deep sadness was taking root, and it was about to overflow. In 1971, even though it was still popular, CBS suddenly cancelled Family Affair. The network was doing something called a rural purge, getting rid of shows that felt too old-fashioned to make way for grittier, more relevant content. Family Affair, with its wholesome vibe, got the axe. For 13-year-old Anissa, the cancellation was both a relief and a curse. She was finally free from Buffy, but she would soon find out that Buffy wasn't done with her. Anissa was desperate to keep acting and move into more grown-up roles. She wanted to prove she was more than a little girl with a doll. But Hollywood can be brutal, especially to child stars who are so locked into one image. When she auditioned for the role of Regan McNeil in the 1973 horror classic The Exorcist, the director reportedly couldn't see past sweet, innocent Buffy. The part, of course, went to Linda Blair. The rejections kept coming. She was invited to audition for the part of the teenage runaway Iris in Martin Scorsese's gritty 1976 masterpiece, Taxi Driver, but by then, she was so disillusioned she turned it down. That iconic role went to Jodie Foster. Her former on-screen uncle, Brian Keith, even offered her a role on his new show, but she declined that, too. She was done. The same industry that built her up now treated her like a dusty antique. Casting directors didn't see Anissa Jones, the teenager, they saw Buffy Davis, forever 6 years old. The psychological toll was awful. At an age when most kids are just starting to figure themselves out, Anissa was being told her career was already over. She decided to quit Hollywood and try to have a normal life. She enrolled at Westchester High School, but normal wasn't an option. She wasn't just another student, she was that girl from TV. Classmates would taunt her, making fun of her famous role. The very thing that had made her a star now made her an outcast. The bullying was relentless, and even though she was a good student, she couldn't take it. She dropped out of high school, much to her mother's frustration. The few anchors in Anissa's life were disappearing. The custody battle had ended with her father winning custody of both her and her brother, Paul. For a little while, living with her dad brought some stability. But that peace was shattered on March 7, 1974, when her father died of heart disease, just a week before her 16th birthday. She was heartbroken. With her father gone and her relationship with her mother destroyed, Anissa was adrift. Instead of going back to her mom's, she moved in with a friend. Her mother's response was to report Anissa to the police as a runaway. Anissa was arrested and spent time in a juvenile detention center. The feeling of betrayal was immense. The darling of television was now a ward of the court, a problem child. When she was released, she was forced to live with her mother again, but their relationship was broken for good. She started rebelling more openly, shoplifting and getting into trouble. She took a job at a donut shop, a humbling step for a former star, but even there, she couldn't escape Buffy. Customers would recognize her, making her feel like even more of a failure. A dangerous new chapter began when she fell in with the wrong crowd, many of whom were deep into drugs. It was an escape, a way to numb the pain. Her behavior became more and more erratic. She bounced between jobs, had wild mood swings, and her drug use got worse. Friends and family were worried, but nobody seemed to know how to help her. She was spiraling, and the world that once watched her every move now seemed to be looking away. On March 11, 1976, Anissa turned 18. This birthday brought a sudden flood of money, the rest of her earnings from family affair, nearly $200,000. For a troubled young woman with no guidance, this money wasn't a lifeline, it was a death sentence. She immediately rented an apartment with her brother Paul, bought cars, and threw wild parties. The money just fueled her self-destruction. She was no longer just experimenting, she was drowning. On the evening of August 27, 1976, Anissa was partying with friends at her place in Playa del Rey. Later that night, she and her boyfriend drove down to the beach town of Oceanside, California, for another party at a friend's house. The place was filled with other young people, some as young as 12. According to people who were there, Anissa wasn't herself that night. One friend later remembered, she wasn't being very social. She and some other kid stayed in a bedroom taking angel dust and coke. She seemed withdrawn, a ghost of the girl she once was. The party raged on, but Anissa retreated into a drug-fueled haze. At some point, feeling sick, she went into an upstairs bedroom to lie down. Her boyfriend saw her there and, thinking she was just asleep, left her alone. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. The next morning, August 28, 1976, just before noon, the friend whose house it was went to wake Anissa up. She was completely unresponsive. Panic set in. Paramedics were called, but it was far too late. Mary Anissa Jones, the girl who was once Buffy Davis, was dead. She was only 18. In the bedroom, police found a small envelope. It had a doctor's business address on it, and on the front, it specified a drug, a dose, and a name, Seconal, Jones. This tiny clue was about to blow the whole case wide open. The news of Anissa Jones's death sent shockwaves through Hollywood. The cause of death was pretty clearly a drug overdose, but the details from the coroner's report were staggering. The San Diego County coroner, Dr. Robert Creason, found a lethal mix of powerful drugs in her system. The official cause of death was poisoning from barbiturates, PCP, cocaine, and quaaludes. Dr. Creason called it one of the most massive overdoses he had ever seen. Despite the insane amount of drugs, her death was officially ruled accidental, not a suicide. The belief was that she had simply lost track of what she'd taken in a drug-fueled fog, a tragic mistake. The autopsy report was heartbreaking. It noted she appeared much younger than 18, standing just under 5 feet tall and weighing only 81 pounds. There were no signs of injury, just the silent, deadly evidence of the poison that stopped her heart. Her mother, Paula, was in denial, telling the public her daughter wasn't involved with drugs. But the evidence was overwhelming. Anissa had been living a secret life, one filled with pain and a desperate attempt to feel something, or maybe nothing at all. The sweet image of Buffy was now forever tied to the grim reality of a lonely teenager who died in a stranger's bedroom. The tragedy wasn't just that she died, but that she died so completely alone, her struggles either unseen or ignored by the people who should have been protecting her. While the public was trying to process the death of a beloved child star, investigators were looking at that little envelope from the party. The name on it was Dr. Don Carlos Machis, a physician from Torrance, California. And what they found was a sickening betrayal. Dr. Machis wasn't a healer, he was a Dr. Feelgood, running a notorious pill mill for local kids. Machis was already under investigation before Anissa died. People had reported seeing long lines of young people waiting for hours to see him. Police reports showed he was writing over 100 prescriptions a day. For a small fee, anyone could get a quick exam and walk out with a prescription for powerful, addictive drugs. It was later alleged that Dr. Moschus knew he was terminally ill and was running the scheme to build up an estate for his family. 6 days after Anissa's death, Dr. Moschus was arrested and charged with 11 felonies, including illegally prescribing the seconal that killed her. He was initially charged with second-degree murder, but those charges were later dropped. But he would never face a jury. Just 4 months later, on December 27, 1976, Dr. Don Carlos Moschus died of his own illness before he could stand trial. Anissa's family filed a $400,000 wrongful death lawsuit against the doctor's estate. In 1979, a judge delivered a verdict that was both a victory and a slap in the face. The court found Dr. Moschus was 30% liable for her death, but ruled that Anissa herself was 70% responsible. The family was awarded a reduced settlement of just $79,500. The ruling admitted a doctor had helped cause her death, but it also put most of the blame on the troubled 18-year-old girl he supplied. After a small, private service, Anissa Jones was cremated, and her ashes were scattered over the Pacific Ocean. There is no grave to visit, no headstone to mark her short, chaotic life. The tragedy didn't end with her. Her brother, Paul, who was also deeply scarred by their childhood and his sister's death, fell into the same cycle of addiction. On March 15, 1984, just 4 days after what would have been Anissa's 26th birthday, Paul also died of a drug overdose. He was only 24. The story of the family affair cast is often called a cursed one. Sebastian Cabot, who played the lovable Mr. French, died of a stroke just a year after Anissa, in 1977. Brian Keith, the fatherly Uncle Bill, struggled with depression and health problems. In 1997, just 2 months after his own daughter died by suicide, he took his own life. Johnny Whitaker, who played Anissa's on-screen twin, also faced his own demons. Her death hit him hard. He later fell into a decade-long battle with drug and alcohol addiction before getting clean. He's now a certified drug counselor, dedicating his life to helping others avoid the fate that took his friend. Today, only he and Kathy Garver, who played Sissy, are still alive from the main cast. Anissa Jones's story is a profound and heartbreaking part of Hollywood history. It's a raw reminder of the human cost hiding behind the glamour. If you want to understand more about the complex lives of those who grew up in the spotlight, please consider subscribing to our channel so you don't miss what's next. The tragedy of Anissa Jones isn't just about a drug overdose. It's about the crushing weight of childhood fame, the prison of being typecast, and the total lack of support for young performers. She was the product of a system that manufactured an image of innocence, sold it to millions, and then threw the real person away when she no longer fit the part. She tried so hard to become Anissa, but the world only wanted Buffy. She was failed on every level, by a Hollywood system that used her, by a family broken by conflict, by a school where she was bullied, and finally, by a doctor who chose profit over his oath. Anissa wasn't just some rebellious teen who made bad choices, she was a deeply wounded young woman crying out for help in a world that refused to listen. The image of her as Buffy, clutching her Mrs. Beasley doll, is frozen in time, a symbol of a childhood that was both celebrated and stolen. But the real legacy of Anissa Jones is a darker one. It's a cautionary tale that still echoes through Hollywood today, a heartbreaking reminder that behind every star, there is a human being who deserves more than our applause. They deserve our compassion.